go. Okay. Hi, guys. Good morning. Thanks for joining me. We're really excited to take you through this Shopify stuff, as well as how to use Google Shopping Setup. I thought I'll quickly record it because we're probably both going to use this about 1,000 times. Morel, before we start, do you want to say a little bit about your business and give yourself a plug? May as well, if we're both going to be sharing this info. All right, and uh, is Jason going to do one as well, or he's with you? Okay, cool. All right, so and myself, George from PPC Land, as well as Low Cost SEO, founder of both businesses, and I'm sure you'll find out more about us in future links. Okay, so what I want to do is, I've found basically two videos that I follow that I agree with predominantly. I thought we can quickly fast forward through the points that they make on how to set stuff up. One's using an application, and the other one's using the old-fashioned manual spreadsheet where you import your products into a spreadsheet and you have certain columns, certain SKUs, certain descriptions, and it's more manually controlled, which you then upload into Google shopping ads, and away you go. I found personally, with my experience and specifically with my teams, when it's something WordPress related, I'll find that my teams, and I've found as well, it's probably easier, or not easier, but um, more economical to run the manual way. In other words, export the products, import them into the spreadsheet, and choose which products you want to run, and then you've got a bit more control inside the AdWords or Google Shopping landscape. Um, but in your instance, Merrill, where you do a lot of Shopify stuff, I found that it's probably easier to use one of the pre-existing Shopify apps that many businesses have built, such as the Google Shopping app, or the one that your current client uses, which is Google Shopping and a Facebook connector. And the reason why I like that is because when you're using something, Shopify can be a bit complicated and not very dev friendly sometimes, very bloated. So when you use these apps, it makes Shopify the central source of truth in a way, as a CMS, and then that way, when clients are updating their products in Shopify and the details in Shopify app will then sync anything that you've done with a product set that you've selected and feed it straight into Google Shopping feed, and there's no mucking around. You don't have to do a spreadsheet. Yeah, you just basically pick your products in Shopify, export them out, and that's it. And then you then set up your campaign in AdWords, and away you go. So you can appreciate having something as complex as Shopify, and especially if you've got a big shop. I just find that a little bit easier. Um, but that's just me. And there might be some devs out there that know Shopify inside out and say, well, no, the manual method is better for X, Y, Z. So this is just my personal experience. All right, so I'll let's forward this guy, and we'll go with first point. So he's talking about how to go in. Right, I won't take you through the setup because you know about the setup, right, already? Or do you want to go through the setup of a shopping campaign? Okay, hold on. What I might do is let me share the screen, uh, and if you can enable screen sharing, I'll share my page. Sorry about that. Forgot the crucial step. Okay, can you see my screen now? Okay, so yeah, so uh, just for those that don't know, when you come into a new shopping campaign, you can go into brand awareness, uh, or create a product brand consideration shopping campaign. And this is what the guy's basically going to show that's what he's going to set up now. You can see he's clicked on brand awareness, and then he's just pause. Okay, welcome back. So we'll continue with the video. As we say, the first thing that this guy recommends, if you haven't created an AdWords account, of course you need to create an AdWords account because that's where Google Shopping exists. So what you can see, he's basically saying go into AdWords, create the account. I'll just quickly take you through that. You say explore account. I like to use the advanced version. Okay. You basically then from there he then goes and searches for Merchant Center. After he's created the account, he creates his Merchant Center. And then this is the first thing you'll see is where you enter your business name, your country, and your time zone. I'll just play it and you can watch him do it. Okay. All right. Okay. And then he's saying we skip it. If you're using WooCommerce, then WooCommerce will have its equivalent of the app that feeds into WooCommerce. So how Shopify has its app that feeds into Google Merchant Center, or you can run it the manual method, which is in the other video that we'll quickly run you through. Or again, if it's AdWords, I'd say AdWords also. Excuse me. If it's WordPress will also, I'd say, have its connector, or you can do it the manual method as well using WordPress. So there's either app related or manual method using WordPress. And as I was saying before, my guys, especially specifically when it's WordPress, do the manual method. If it's Shopify, we use the app method, which is what this guy's just about to take us through. Okay, so I'll just continue. So he goes through basically all the basic settings, follows the bouncing ball, ticks that he's read the agreement. All right. Then the account's ready to use. So the next thing you got to do is when you're setting up Merchant Center, is you need to set up your tax settings and your tax categories. That's quite important. You don't have to fill everything in, but most of these things you need to fill in. So I'll just press play and run through this. You can watch what he does. So basically when you set up products in Merchant Center, you need to have GST, postal delivery, or you set up all those types of taxes and things so that it's by default assigned to the product. And then you can then amend those types of details as well as via the spreadsheet. Okay, but so we'll just run through. So this guy's in the US. So here you can see he's setting up the taxes, the shipping, as I said. So we'll use Australia for us, the time zone, and then basically how long it takes for you to send out a product, or how long it takes for the customer to send out a product. So this is if you have a flat shipping cost in, so you can set that up, or you can have different shipping costs for different products. But he's going to set up a fixed rate just to make things simple before he continues. Then he goes back. So one strange thing you got to do that I found always strange is once you set up Merchant Center, you need to claim and verify your URL. I think this is just and if you don't do it, it causes problems. So, but the other thing, the good thing is now with the updated Google Merchant Center, there's like a checklist they force you to go through before they then on pass you into the setup. So this is what he's going to do now. Yeah, it's just it's a bit like when you've got webmaster tools and you have to send the metadata. You have to put the metadata into the site before you can verify webmaster tools. This is kind of something similar. Okay, so we'll watch him do that. So there. So this is where he's taking the metadata, and then um, Jason will be familiar with this. This when you want to put when you want to verify webmaster tools, or if you want to verify Google Shopping, you go onto in the theme sections under, I think, is it liquid theme, Jason? I can't remember exactly, but he'll show us. Yeah, and then just before where the header I think ends, you then so this is all basic dev stuff, and then what that does is it then allows you to verify the Google Merchant Center and link that to your website. So we'll watch him do that. So this is another important step. So he's put it there, then you click save. Uh, So what he's done there, and what he's saying is, he's just click verify URL, and he's saying because he didn't have an active store, it's set as unclaimed. But normally when you have a proper store, it normally takes 5 to 10 minutes to verify correctly and claim. Sometimes it'll claim straight away, but if it doesn't claim straight away, what I found is if you wait 5 or 10 minutes, it gives it a time for the analytics code to sort of, or whatever happens internally in Google, to recognize that the website's got that tag, and then it'll claim for you. So that if you've ever doing this on the first time, that can be a bit of a gotcha. So just watch out for that. So so you can see he's waited, and now he's claimed it. And what he's going to set up now, Morel, is the the Google Merchant Center connector to Shopify. Now, there's a couple that you can use, but we'll just see what he uses for now, just for setup's sake. And obviously, people are going to have different nuances. As I said, there's Google Shopping Ads connector, there's Shopping and Facebook connector. Um, he uses a specific paid version. I use the free version of Google Merchant Center, Google Ads, Google Merchant Shopping uh, app for Shopify. So let's just watch what he does. There you go, Google Shopping, and then you have all the different versions. So that's the one that he uses. So he then installs the app. So that's the other thing. This is also important. Whatever app you use inside the Shopify environment, I found um, it's important to use, if you can, your primary login account to your MCC or the client's. Uh, okay, so now this is where he does the same connection. There's that, and then so then the app will ask you to, normally how you use like a plugin, whether it's an analytics plugin or a Shopify plugin, it'll ask you to assign permission. So this is all basic stuff. Okay, then I'll just press play. So then the Merchant Center ID will then pop up, and it will take you through the setup process. And this is what he's showing us. Okay, there. You enable it. There goes. Okay, and basically what you're seeing here is in Shopify, in the actual Merchant Center app connector, you have all your default settings. He's saying he normally leaves it as default. Um, Based on the application you're going to use, you need to obviously use common sense whether you use it default or not. I normally leave it as default, and then I normally open up as many product categories as I can in the spreadsheet sync, because it means when you do your advertising in the Google side, you can, in your ads, you can do specials, you can do descriptions, you can have SKUs. Um, this is going to come down to how familiar you are with the app, and how you and what your personal preferences are, and how expanded you want your sync sheet to be. Um, I think another thing, one thing that we found um, that can be a factor is if you've got thousands of products and you're syncing a lot of information, it could be like a long, you could get sync problems out of it. So again, um, you need to decide what's best for you and your particular client. Okay. So this is what he's saying. You do all variants or first variant, etc. So here what he's saying is in this specific app, you've got the option to use the SKU as your product ID or your own variant ID, or which is number. I, in my experience, I found that you have to have an SKU inside the spreadsheet anyways. So I normally ensure that um, especially if you're doing it manually, you create unique SKUs, and then normally you can take that SKU off the actual product anyways, and make sure it's unique. So I'm sure you're familiar with that type of process already, so I won't take you through that. Um, okay, so then it'll it'll look at your products, and then it'll sync the products. Yeah. Okay, we'll get this in a sec. So what he's saying is, when you set up your sync, it will sync with Google Merchant Center, and then like normal, even when you put a manual feed up, it could take up to 24 hours to approve the products. You've probably already seen that already, because what it does is it checks the products, it verifies the images that you've used in the data feed, and it makes sure that the prices that you've got in your Excel data feed are the same as what's on the website. All right. When you're waiting for that to happen, you can then go in and set up all your back-end tracking and your conversion tracking, so that basically um, Google Merchant Center can talk to analytics and then can then decide which products it shows, how often to what audience, your remarketing lists, all that type of stuff. So that's what he's going to show us now. So he's now going, let's say, uh, across to Google Ads. Yeah. So so what he's saying is in this specific app creates like a Google tracking code, which you can then put using Tag Manager, etc., into the product websites. Okay, I'll just show you that. So he's saying go to Tools, Linked Accounts. Yeah. So the next step is once you've put your conversion tracking in your tag, you then need to verify that the Merchant Center has been linked to your Shopify, and normally the app will help do that. But you can see he's going in here and basically selecting, especially if you have an MCC and you have multiple clients with multiple Shopify accounts, you have to make sure you select the correct Shopify account for the client. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I'll just show you that. So this is where he's linking the correct client. under link to the Shopify. Yeah, yeah. And then he goes into Merchant Center. So once you've linked the account, you then to need to go into the Merchant Center setting and then basically approve the link that you've created. Yeah. Um, Okay, so what he's saying now is once you've done all the back-end processing, so you've linked the account, you've set up your analytics, you've, made sure your tag manager is working, and once you've got the sync working, the feed working, you can then go in. So you basically at this point now we've set up Shopify, we've set up the analytics, we've set up the conversion tracking, we've got our feed in the Google Merchant Center. And another thing I want to point out is what I used to confuse me before is what was the difference between the AdWords environment and the Google Merchant environment? I thought it was just all one thing, all right? Um, it's actually a different environment, just like how Google Analytics is different to AdWords, all right? A Google Merchant Center is kind of different to AdWords, even though it's kind of very well integrated. So once you've got your Merchant Center stuff set up, you then come back into AdWords and then set up your Google Shopping campaign, display campaign, your Google Shopping ads. So what he's now doing is he's going to click sales because that's what you want. And then he's going to then set up a Google Shopping campaign. And then once he sets it up, that's where you can then set up your audience, your remarketing lists, and what products you want to run. So we're just going to go through that. So sales, shopping, you, you make sure you've the right merchant center is selected. Okay, then continue. So this is where he's setting up a new shopping campaign. Okay, so as with a normal AdWords account, right, what he's saying here is, and I specifically do this as well, is when it's a new campaign, you start with manual CPC. Don't start with max clicks or TGA or any of the AI stuff, even though you've got tracking in there. The reason being is you want to go manual CPC and you want to set it at $1 or 50 cents or something and run that for about a week because you want to see where the price point for the products is coming in at, and you want to allow um, the remarketing and the audience, and you want to run the account and let the account warm up, right? Like a typical new AdWords install, so that the data can then come in, and then you can then set your correct pricing point. Whereas if you just go in and set, CPC, which is a view per thousand or whatever you want to set up, it's not an efficient way of doing it. So that's what I agree with this technique as well. So sorry, say that again. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, well, look, if you haven't worked out yet, Google's primary objective is to spend your money, then you must be living on planet Mars. Of course, Google's also, as a side project, wants to get you lots of sales and leads. But if you've got 10 guys, its primary objective is to spend all 10 people's money equally. We all know that. You put $1 million in there, it'll find a way to spend you $1 million. Okay, all right, so let's continue. So what he's done is he's unchecked Google Search Partners and YouTube and Gmail. You don't need to do that, but maybe just when you want to test it out, you just keep it pure, okay? And he puts his group name in. His test bid, 51 cents, and save. Um, then as a normal AdWords setup is once you set up your ad, it then takes you through your billing process where you're putting your company name, the credit card, all that stuff, right? In your example, it'll be your client's details, of course. Okay, this is also important. So when you're setting up a merchant center, this is another strange step. It's like as if they forgot it, but you got to go into merchant center and click an option to tell it to advertise and to start its advertising engine inside Merchant Center, which it's a bit strange. So the way you do that is you go into Overview, as you did, more options to grow, and then you'll see he clicks, see, see here, you have to manually click advertise your products through Google Shopping, which I mean, that's the whole reason we're doing this in the first place, but you got to do that. So it's really weird. It's a funny step. So, so then he clicks on get started. So this is where you go back into that test funnel that I told you about, that sequence that they run you through. So you can see we've already set up the taxes, we've already set up the feed, we've verified the URL. If you did your products a couple of days ago, that'll be okay already. But because he just did it and the products haven't been verified, it doesn't come up as an option. And then he's already obviously linked his account. Okay, so when you see that grayed out, it just means your feed hasn't been verified. Okay, so don't freak out about that. Yeah. Then if you then go into Merchant Center and then you go into all products, are you familiar with this where you can view the diagnostics of your products, all your products and your feed information inside Google Center? You've already seen that 1,000 times, right? Okay, you have a play when you log into Merchant Center. You've got your overview, which you see the overview of all of your setup. You see a diagnostics of what which products have been approved, which have been rejected. It shows you like a little table with green and red and orange. So orange means pending, red means disapproved, and green means approved. Now, generally speaking, a product will be disapproved because its URL is wrong, or its price is wrong, or there's something there that when it's done an investigation between your feed and the website, there's something different. So when I've, this is why I like the Google Shopify app a bit better, because obviously that's not going to be a problem because it takes what's on the website and syncs it through anyways, right? So you're not going to have that problem. But when you do a manual spreadsheet, especially if the spreadsheet gets outdated after 3 or 4 or 6 months, then you may have that problem. Okay? Yeah. And so between all products and diagnostics, you'll see that. Now, where you see feeds, this okay. Um, Now, as I was saying, in feeds, um, if you've done it via the app, the feed will select the feed that's been automated, and then inside there you could then manually run the feed or manually sync, which is what we did with the other client. If you're running a manual feed, in here is where you would tell it where your let's say Google Sheets are, because normally you need to run a Google Sheet where you have all your product and SKUs in there, and that's where the sync happens. And there you can either set the sync schedule, you can manually update your Google Sheet and then get it to pull back in again. So if you have a problem with a client that has synced information that's not syncing correct, inside the feed area is where you fix all those syncing issues. Okay, but again, have a play. It's really easy to work out. There's only 5 or 6 options there. Um, that's not the hard bit. All right, so I'll just continue again. So he's saying he's only got one product in there. And then he's saying basically in a few days it'll allow you to check it. Once you've checked it, you then go back into this screen which was in the setup, and you have to then say, yes, I've read all the details and I agree to the Google Shopping policy. And then once the data feeds have been approved and you've selected the shopping policy and everything's all syncing up, see that little active button there? That'll then become green, and then you can then click it and then basically activates the system. So yeah, now I'll yes you can. However, there's one extra thing I need to show you in the other video um, that this guy didn't cover that he should have covered. Now, just bear with me, and that is when you're setting up your analytics tracking, right, and your conversion tracking, and you're putting that in your liquids theme. The conversion tracking that Google Shopify gives you, it doesn't give you all the specific settings so that if you've come back into the shopping cart many times, it doesn't give you the settings to identify a unique person, whether they've come in multiple times or once. Or it doesn't give you the settings to be able to report or track via product ID. So if this guy shows you how to do that, I'm just going to quickly take you through this and show you and see if there's anything that I've missed that this guy does, and then show you those analytics. So just bear with me, okay? Okay. So this guy runs through the same process, blah, blah, blah. So merchant center, liquid theme. And by the way, this guy does the manual method, okay? So this is, moral for argument's sake, this is where I told you the overview and the diagnostics where you kind of see what's active, what's pending, and what's disapproved, okay? That's where this screen is. Okay, so there you go. And then you do the linking and the verifying. You do this weird step where you say, yes, I want to do shopping. Then the account, then set up all the settings that we did before. Okay, you then go into your feeds. This is a feed button where he's setting up his manual spreadsheet, right? And you can see that's spreadsheet there with all the SKUs, etc. in there. Okay, uh, he then links that. Okay, what's he doing here? Where is the? He then sets up his product information. He then links his Google Sheets. Uh, there's the the manual SKU spreadsheet that I talked to you about, where he'll manually fill this in and then pull those products, and he will then set a sync for this to sync at a certain time, right? Okay, I'll just go on, yada yada yada. Uh, Where's the analytics bit? He then talks about his products, whatever. And then he talks about, this is actually a good point. He talks about the description that you might have in your Shopify product might be quite salesy and might be quite SEO heavy and SEO enabled. And he was saying one good reason why you might want to use a manual spreadsheet over the automated version is in the manual spreadsheet, and this I forgot to mention this, in the description, because you can put a salesy CRO, or not CRO, but psychologically written description to encourage people to buy, whereas on the website, the description for the same product might be more of an SEO enabled description, especially the title. So this is where you can change things up if you're using a manual sheet. So that's one advantage. Okay, and he's going into his shop. I'm just want to find this analytics step that he does. Come on, mate, where is it? He's talking about setting up your, your categories in your spreadsheet and all that stuff. Okay, come on, where is it? He's back to his feed. So this is a really good video for the manual method. And then he goes in and sets up his ad campaign. Again, manual CPC. Where is it? Oh, where is it? Hold on, Morel. Anyway, so what I might need to do is send it out separately for you. Where is it? Anyways, I'll send it out separately, mate. But just know that when you take your conversion tracking code out of um, the analytics on the Shopify, when you put it into Shopify, you have to add some extra um, variables on there and replace the default one with the variables. I'll send those out separately in an email because unfortunately I can't find where in the video he did that, but it's definitely in this video. If you want to watch the video, then you can find it yourself. But just note that that's an important step. Yeah, I agree. Nor me. Yeah, and once you do one or two or three, it's pretty much the same process. Then it's just a matter of when you run the client, learning the psychology of the different business types and the communities and the psychology of how they run their ads and then your bidding strategies. It becomes the same strategy as what Google Ads is, right? Whether you use a manual approach or an AI approach, um, it's not. Yes, it's the same as the conversions. You go into conversions and you set up your different attributions and you say whether it's a phone call or a lead, all that stuff. The conversion element and the tracking element is exactly the same as normal because it sits inside analytics and AdWords. The only stuff that you're not going to be familiar with is the stuff that only sits inside Google Merchant Center, which is we basically went through, 95% of it today. Any questions? Does that make sense? And you can probably see why I didn't want to take you through the client setup, why these videos were good because I mean um, these guys show differently how the app's done versus the manual method's done. It's very very comprehensive. There's no point me reinventing the wheel, you know. All right, all the best. Have a great day, and yeah, thanks for allowing me to do that. Take care. Take care. See you, mate. Bye bye. See you, Jason.